She thought she could fool me. She thought she was in control. But what she didn't know was that I had been watching, listening, and recording everything. For weeks, I stayed quiet. I smiled. I played along. She had no idea that every lie, every excuse, every secret call was all being saved as evidence. Then the moment came. I exposed her. I ruined her plans. And I made sure she lost everything. This is the story of how I turned betrayal into the ultimate revenge. What would you do if you caught your partner cheating? Drop a comment below. Subscribe now for more shocking real-life stories, because this is just the beginning. She thought she was so clever. She thought she could keep lying. But what she didn't know was that I had recorded everything. It started with a feeling, a gut instinct I couldn't ignore. At first, I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. But then the little signs started adding up. The late nights at work that never used to happen before. The sudden need to keep her phone on silent, face down on the table. The way she laughed at messages she never let me see. And then there was the scent. A cologne I didn't recognize lingering on her clothes. I wasn't going to confront her without proof. I had seen too many people get blindsided by lies, made to feel crazy for suspecting the truth. I needed undeniable evidence. So I got to work. I bought a few small, high-quality voice recorders. Ones that could be hidden in places she'd never think to check. One went in her car, tucked beneath the driver's seat. Another was placed near the home office, where she always took her private calls. And the last one, that went right under our bed. Felt extreme, but I had to know. For the first 2 days, nothing. Just normal conversations, work calls, a few calls with her mom. But on the third day, everything changed. I came home from work a little later than usual. She was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I waited until she was completely out before I retrieved the recorder from under the bed and slipped into the office to listen. What I heard made my blood run cold. Conversation between her and him. First, it was flirty, disgustingly so. She giggled like a schoolgirl, her voice softer than she ever used with me. And then she said it. I hate pretending with him. He's so clueless. He actually thinks everything is fine. I gripped the desk, my knuckles turning white. I'll tell him soon, she continued. I just need more time. I don't want to deal with his reaction. I paused the recording, staring at the wall in disbelief. She was planning to leave me, but not yet. Not until she was ready. Not until she had secured whatever she needed from me first. I clenched my jaw, my breathing slow and controlled. I didn't get angry. I got focused. I needed more. This wasn't just about proving she was cheating. This was about making sure that when she did try to destroy my life, she wouldn't succeed. I left the recorder where it was and started looking for more clues. Her phone was my next target. I wasn't stupid, I knew she had a passcode. But I also knew she wasn't as careful as she thought. So I waited. The next morning, as she scrolled through her phone at breakfast, I casually glanced over, pretending to check my own messages. For numbers, I memorized them in seconds. That night, after she fell asleep, I took her phone from the nightstand. My heart pounded as I typed in the code. It unlocked. I exhaled slowly and opened her messages. And that's when I saw everything. Texts, photos, plans. She and her lover had already booked a hotel for the weekend. She told him she was going on a girls' trip to clear her head. But the worst part? They had been laughing at me. He's so clueless. I don't even have to try to hide it. I feel bad sometimes, but not bad enough to stop. He's just boring now. I sat there, gripping the phone, forcing myself to breathe. I could have woken her up right then, screamed at her, thrown the evidence in her face. But that's what she expected. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I put her phone back and went to bed like nothing had happened. Because now I had a plan. The next morning, I woke up early, pretending like nothing had changed. She was still in bed, scrolling through her phone, smiling at whatever message she had just received. I already knew who it was from. She had no idea I knew everything. I kissed her on the forehead before heading to the shower, my mind already running through my next moves. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to ruin her plan before she even had a chance to execute it. That day at work, I took care of everything. First, I visited the bank. I removed half of the money from our joint account and moved it into a separate account under my name. I left just enough so that nothing would seem suspicious. Next, I froze her credit card. She wouldn't know until she tried to use it. Then I made a call to my lawyer. I explained the situation, and he advised me on how to move forward. I wasn't just going to divorce her. I was going to make sure she walked away with nothing. After that, I went home early, knowing she wasn't expecting me. Sure enough, when I pulled into the driveway, her car was gone. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly where she was. Instead of waiting around, I went inside, grabbed the voice recorder from under our bed, and sat down to listen. What I heard this time, it was worse. So much worse. "Are you excited for the weekend?" her lover asked. "Of course," she said. "But I need you to promise me something. No pictures. No social media. Nothing that could get back to him. I'm not ready for him to find out yet. You're still going through with it, right?" She hesitated for a moment before replying. "Yeah, I just need more time to set things up first. I want to make sure I get what I deserve before I leave." I clenched my fists, my jaw tightening. She was using me, keeping me around until she was ready to move on. That's when I decided. She wasn't going to leave me on her terms. She was going to leave on mine. I grabbed her laptop and accessed her email. I knew her passwords. She had never been careful about things like that. And there it was, the hotel reservation. A nice place not too far from the city. Booked under her name. A 2-night stay just for her and him. She thought she was in control. She had no idea what was coming. That night, when she got home, I acted completely normal. I asked her about her day. I smiled. I laughed at her jokes. She had no clue that I had spent the entire day preparing for her downfall. But the next day, that was when I made my biggest move yet. First, I took the copies of her texts, voice recordings, and emails and sent them to her family. I wasn't going to let her play the victim later. They needed to know exactly who she was. Then I sent the same evidence to her lover's wife. It didn't take long before my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Who the hell are you?" I smirked before replying. "I'm the husband of the woman your wife has been sleeping with." A minute later, the phone rang. I answered. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice cold. I did. I told him about the texts, the voice recordings, the hotel booking. By the time I was done, he was silent. "I knew something was off," he muttered. "Now you know for sure," I replied. "We made a plan. I wasn't just going to catch them. I was going to make sure it was public. So I booked the room next to theirs. I wanted to be close enough to record everything, to make sure they had no way of denying it. I checked in a day before they did, setting up my cameras in the perfect spots. They wouldn't even see it coming. And then I waited. The next day, right on time, she arrived. I watched from a distance as she pulled into the parking lot, stepping out in a dress she had never worn for me. She looked excited, happy, as if she wasn't throwing away years of marriage for a meaningless fling. She had no idea that by the time this weekend was over, her life as she knew it would be destroyed. I sat in my hotel room, my phone in hand, watching as the plan unfolded. The hidden cameras I had set up earlier were already recording, but I wanted to see her face when she thought she was safe. She had no idea that the moment she walked into that hotel room, she was walking into a trap. She stepped out of her car, adjusting her dress, checking her reflection in the side mirror before heading toward the entrance. She looked confident, like she had won. I watched as she walked up to the front desk, smiled at the receptionist, and collected her room key. She had no hesitation, no guilt, no second thoughts. Minutes later, her lover arrived. They greeted each other in the lobby, and my stomach tightened as I watched her kiss him. Not just a peck on the cheek, a real kiss. She laughed at something he said, playfully touching his arm before leading him toward the elevators. I had seen enough. I switched over to my laptop, making sure the cameras in their room were capturing everything. I wasn't going to miss a single second. Inside the hotel room, they were getting comfortable, completely unaware that every move they made was being recorded. I can't believe we finally have the whole weekend together, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I know, he replied, pulling off his jacket. No more sneaking around. No more lying. I clenched my jaw at his words. He really thought this was some kind of love story. They kept talking, laughing, reminiscing about their past meetups. But then the conversation took a turn that made my blood boil. I feel bad sometimes, she admitted, running her fingers through her hair. He's not a bad guy. He just bores me now. He doesn't satisfy you, her lover said, smirking. She sighed dramatically. Not the way you do. I had heard enough. I could have burst into the room right then and confronted them. But that would have been too easy. No, I had a better plan. I sent the footage to my lawyer. I sent the footage to her family. And then, I sent the footage to her best friend. The fallout was instant. My phone started buzzing within minutes. Her best friend. Tell me this isn't real. Her brother. I swear to God, if I ever see her, I won't be able to look at her the same way. And then, the best message of all from her lover's wife. Thank you. I know exactly what to do now. But I wasn't done yet. I needed to deliver the final blow. I scheduled an email to her work. Inside was a copy of everything. The photos, the videos, the texts. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. By the time she checked out of that hotel, her world would already be collapsing. But I wanted to see her reaction. So I waited. The next morning, I made my move. She and her lover had just come back from breakfast when I decided to make my presence known. I knocked on the door. Silence. Then I heard whispering. Panicked whispering. A few seconds later, she opened the door. Her eyes went wide when she saw me standing there, completely calm, completely composed. What are you doing here?" she stammered. I didn't answer. I just handed her my phone. The video was already playing. Her face paled. No, this isn't." I tilted my head. "Not what it looks like?" She opened her mouth to speak. But then, her phone started buzzing. Call after call. Messages pouring in. She picked it up and saw the names. Her mother, her father, her boss. Her entire body froze. She knew. It was over. How could you do this to me?" she whispered. I laughed. "I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself." And with that, I turned and walked away. She didn't try to stop me. She couldn't. Because now, she was the one with everything to lose. I walked away from that hotel room without looking back. I didn't need to. The damage was already done. By the time she fully processed what had just happened, her life was already crumbling. I got in my car, gripping the steering wheel, taking a deep breath. It was over. The months of doubt, the gut-wrenching suspicion, the humiliation of being lied to by someone I trusted. It all ended today. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted to see the full extent of the fallout. As I pulled onto the road, I checked my phone. The notifications were piling up. Her brother had messaged me again. "She's freaking out. She called Mom crying, saying you ruined her life." Her best friend had also reached out. "She called me screaming, blaming me for telling you. She still doesn't get it, does she?" And then, there was the best message of all, her boss. I had sent the footage to him earlier that morning. Not because I wanted to be petty, but because I knew she had been flirting with her lover at company events, embarrassing herself in front of colleagues. His response was short and brutal. "Consider her employment terminated. We don't tolerate this kind of conduct." I let out a breath, staring at the screen. She had lost her marriage. She had lost her family's respect. And now, she had lost her job. Actions have consequences. By the time I got home, I knew she would be racing back to the house, desperate to fix what couldn't be fixed. I walked inside, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat down on the couch. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Then, right on schedule, her car pulled into the driveway. I didn't move. I let her come to me. I wanted to see her face when she realized she had no more power. The front door burst open, and there she was, wild-eyed, disheveled, her phone still in her hand. "You destroyed my life," she screamed, slamming the door behind her. I raised an eyebrow, taking a slow sip of my drink. I didn't destroy anything. You did that all by yourself. She marched toward me, her face twisted in panic and rage. You sent that video to my parents? To my job? I nodded. They deserved to know the truth. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh, shaking her head. You're insane. Do you know what you've done? Yeah, I said, leaning forward. I took back control. She stood there, breathing hard, her hands shaking. I could tell she wanted to fight, to argue, to somehow turn this around in her favor. But there was nothing left to argue about. The world knew what she was. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her face crumpling when she saw the name. My dad won't even talk to me, she whispered. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? I'm sorry. No. She wasn't sorry when she laughed about how clueless I was. She wasn't sorry when she snuck around behind my back. She wasn't sorry when she planned to take everything from me. Now, she was only sorry because she got caught. Can we just talk? She said suddenly, her voice softer, her eyes pleading. I chuckled, shaking my head. No, we're past that. Her breath hitched. I know I messed up, but I didn't think you'd do this. I didn't think you'd actually. She trailed off, looking around the house, realizing something was missing. Her things. She rushed past me, running to the bedroom. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. A few seconds later, she reappeared in the hallway, her face pale. Where are my clothes? I took another sip of my drink, calm as ever. Gone. She blinked. What do you mean gone? I packed them up and dropped them off at your parents' house. You don't live here anymore. She stared at me, completely speechless. You can't just kick me out, she finally blurted. I stood up, slowly, deliberately. Yes, I can. You think I'd let you stay here after everything you've done? Her bottom lip trembled. But where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Not my problem. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes darted around the room, like she was trying to find something, anything, to hold on to. But there was nothing left. I still love you, she whispered. I laughed, shaking my head. No, you don't. You loved what I gave you. You loved the comfort, the security. But me? You threw me away the second you got bored. She wiped at her eyes, desperate now. Please, I can fix this. Just give me a chance. I looked at her for a long moment, then took my phone out of my pocket and held it up. The divorce papers were already signed. I pressed send. Her phone buzzed instantly. She glanced down at the screen, reading the message. Her face crumpled. It was done. You're really doing this, she whispered. I already did. She let out a shaky breath, taking a step back toward the door. She knew she had lost. Her hands clenched into fists. You're a monster. I smiled. Takes one to know one. She turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, she was gone. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. The house was quiet again. No lies, no betrayal, no fake apologies. Just peace. I sank back onto the couch, grabbed my drink, and smirked. It was finally over. I sat there for a while, letting the silence settle around me. It was over. For months, I had lived under the weight of suspicion, then confirmation, then quiet planning. And now, the storm had passed. I took a slow sip of my drink, listening to the distant sound of her car pulling out of the driveway. It was strange. I expected to feel something. Sadness, regret, maybe even relief. But in reality, I felt nothing. Because this woman, the one who had just walked out of my house, wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. That woman was gone a long time ago. I glanced at my phone. More messages. More fallout. Her best friend. She called me crying, still trying to play the victim. I told her she did this to herself. Her father. I don't know what to say. I'm ashamed. If you ever need anything, just ask. Her lover's wife. Filed for divorce this morning. He tried to deny everything until I showed him the video. He left with a trash bag of clothes and nowhere to go. Thank you. I smirked at that last one. 2 homewreckers taken down in one weekend. But there was one message I didn't expect. Her. I stared at the notification for a second before finally opening it. I know I messed up. I hate myself for what I did. I don't expect forgiveness, but please don't let this be the last thing you remember about me. I was happy with you once. I just lost my way. I wish I could take it all back. I read it twice, 3 times, and then, without hesitation, I deleted it. Because her regrets, they weren't my problem anymore. I put my phone down and stood up, stretching. For the first time in years, I could focus on myself. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Not because I missed her, but because, for the first time in years, I was free. No second-guessing. No wondering where she was when she came home late. No feeling like a fool while she laughed at my expense behind my back. I sold the house. Too many bad memories. I wanted a fresh start somewhere she had never set foot. I got back into the gym. Started feeling like myself again. Stopped worrying about someone else's happiness and focused on my own. And then one night, I got a message that made me laugh out loud. Her lover. I hope you're happy, man. You ruined her life. I smirked as I typed my reply. No. She did that all on her own. I hit send and blocked his number. They weren't my concern anymore. Months passed. Life moved forward. And then, one evening, I ran into someone I didn't expect. Her lover's ex-wife. She spotted me first, raising an eyebrow as she walked up to the bar where I was sitting. Well, if it isn't my favorite co-conspirator. I chuckled, motioning for the bartender. You want a drink? She smirked. Depends. Are we celebrating? I raised my glass. We should be. We got rid of 2 cheaters in one shot. That's got to be worth something. She laughed, shaking her head. I'll drink to that. The bartender set down her glass, and we clinked them together. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what came next. And for the first time in years, the future actually looked good.